What's up, guys? It's Jordana from Pretty Little Podcast. And today it's just me. I don't have any guests, I don't have anyone joining me today. And I don't know how I feel about that. And I seriously feel like every time I put out a solo episode, this is how I start. I feel very vulnerable that it's just me. And I truly shouldn't feel this way because it's just me talking to you guys, but I don't know. I just feel like maybe I'm not talking about the things you guys want to hear. But with that being said, today's episode is fully loaded. We have a lot to cover. And it's just kind of highlighting what's happening in August, what's coming up. And I don't know about y'all, but I feel like time is moving so much faster than it usually does. Like, how is it already July 19th? How are we already almost through the month of July? It's crazy. 2026 has blown by. But I will say that 2026 has been a fantastic year for horror, whether you've been a fan of what's been coming out. It's just, I feel like horror is in the forefront for media and entertainment, and rightfully so, because we're getting a ton of bangers. Like, I still go back to May. And it's funny because just listing the movies in May completely negates and like what has come out before. I'm not saying that in a negative, like in a bad way, but it's just I don't remember a lot of the titles that came out in the months previous to May because we got so many in May. We got one that I'm actually wearing on my shirt, Hokum, which is still, for anyone listening and caring, it's still number one on my list. We got Obsession, we got Backrooms, we got Leviticus, we got Passengers. We got so many bangers in the month of May. And for me, for the ones that I saw, they all were good. I really haven't had any bad feelings about a horror movie yet this year, so that's a good sign. Not all of them have hit as hard as Hokum per se, but I mean, like, needless to say, there have been some hidden gems that I was just not expecting. One that really truly, and I feel like people who follow the page and have been listening, they're probably like, oh, Brianna, please don't mention this one again. But Monkey's Magic Merry-Go-Round still lingers in my head from the first time that I watched it. It is an indie horror movie that's on Screenbox, and it is strictly a one-person movie shot, but it has puppets, and that's like the supporting cast. And I truly think that the craft of puppeteering and practical effects is still, well, puppeteering very much so in 2026, but I feel like just the practical effects still bleeding into the years is a great reassuring sign that people still would like to use practical tools when it comes to making movies and not the dreaded two-letter villain that we do not like to talk about so much, if you know what I mean. But, if you haven't seen Monkey's Magic Merry-Go-Round, I'm not going to disclose too much, but there is a scene in particular that I posted of myself watching the scene with Neil. And when I mean Neil, y'all are probably thinking like Neal, Neil, like any, original way to spell Neil. No, this Neil is like the knee, because obviously Neil is the knee, and it's Kneeil. And that scene blew me away. I was not expecting it. And the other thing too, and I know a lot of people are subjected to trailer reactions. I am guilty of doing some of them. I don't like to do a lot, and I don't do every single one that's sent to me. I like to kind of pick and choose which trailers that I react to if I'm, knowing that I'm going to be into the movie, and if my audience would be into it, it's kind of a mixed bag now, because I know a lot of the people that follow me love indie movies, and then there's a group that loves the box office movies, and then there's a group that loves all. So either way, I know that talking about this movie will hit the right demographic, because I know there are certain people who listen to the pod and follow the channel that would be into this. But just bravo to the team for creating such an original idea, original characters, doing the puppeteering, because that looked so insanely, I don't want to say difficult, but just, I'm sure, a tedious process, but the payoff would be the best thing about it, is seeing that translate to the screen. I wish I would have seen that one on the big screen. That is one that I wish I would have seen on the big screen. Another one that I wish that I could have checked out on the big screen was another independent horror movie called Obex. And that one is centered in the 80s, which y'all know I love a good decade horror movie, especially when it has to do with the 80s. And he has to go find his beloved companion Sandy, because she gets taken by the antagonist in the video game. Again, I like to be very vague. I know people are probably listening like, what the hell is she even talking about? I don't like to give full descriptions of the movie, because sometimes I fear that could lead into the person jumping to their own conclusions of what the movie could be about. And I've been solid on not reading what a movie is about, kind of just looking at the cover art, maybe reading just a little bit of the description, but I don't want to know all of it. I like to go into movies kind of blind, because I fear that we give a little too much in the trailers, or we give a little too much in the description. A couple of the movies that I've been covering for Fantasia Fest, which I'm really excited about. I didn't get to cover that one last year. So adding that one to the list of festivals that I've covered is huge, and also very close to my heart, because we lived very close to the Canadian border before we relocated in 2018. So very excited to be a part of that. But yeah, so when the list came out for Fantasia Fest, I kind of just skimmed over like the brief synopsises of the movies and kind of curated my list that way. And I can't really speak too much on some of the ones that I've watched, because there are restrictions on the reviews, and I definitely don't want to push any lines on that, and be respectful, because this is an honor to be able to cover the festival. And I'm not saying that in a boastful, condescending, like braggy way, but it's just trying to be respectful of people sharing their art with you, and kind of entrusting their project, their baby to you, is a huge thing. And I always want to adhere to the rules and follow them. So I am welcome back. And also, that's just not how Pretty Killer Podcast operates. I don't like to break the rules. I don't like to do any of that stuff, because this is such an honor to even be a part of it. But back to what I was saying, the first kind of glimpse of the list, I had, I think, 8 or 10 on there that I wanted to check out, and I've watched a good handful of them. Some of the titles that I actually got to watch were Nightborn, and that one is coming to Shudder in July. That one was a lot of fun, very folk horror, dark comedy sprinkled throughout, but do not let that interfere with thinking that that could possibly prevent like scares or the intensity of what the movie is, because there were scenes Greg and I were grabbing body parts. There was actually one where I physically jumped off the couch, because it sent shivers from the tip of my skull to my butthole. Like, it was so jarring just to kind of see that portrayed on the big screen. So that one slapped. That one was really good. There's another one called Unholy Night, which I truly was not expecting that movie to hit as hard as it did for me. Again, I cannot really say too much on the movie, but the premise is Gino is home with his family for the holidays, and let's just say an unexpected guest shows up and creates chaos for the holidays. It's gory. It is intense. It's funny. I cried multiple times in this movie. And again, for anyone who listens to the pod or follows my page, you can see that I've been very emotional with horror this year. Hokum warranted a couple times that I cried in that movie. Let's see, what else did I cry when I wasn't expecting? Unholy Night. Like I was not expecting to have that reaction, but I cried multiple times. And one time, very much not like sobbing, but it had me feeling a certain way. Obsession got me upset. Just the feeling of what Nikki was going through. And I definitely want to touch on that because I feel like um, I haven't hopped on the obsession bandwagon to start inserting myself into conversations of, who I think the real bad guy is and all that, because let's be real, it's Bear. And from the jump, and I think we can all feel this way if you have watched Obsession. And if you haven't, I'm not really giving too much away, so you can still listen. I will, of course, always give spoiler warnings, trigger warnings when I'm talking about things that y'all might not want to hear. But for me, in the beginning, I did feel a sense of sadness for Bear. I did kind of feel for him. But then as everything shifted very quickly, because again, this movie goes from 0 to 120,000 in, 25 minutes. But it's a very hard watch knowing exactly what's happening. Like, take yourself out of the fun movie aspect of this because, like, let's be real, breaking a one wish rule is probably not going to grant your wish of, meeting Robert Englund or $1 million or whatever your wish would be. So you have to kind of have a suspension of disbelief from the jump for this movie. But the premise of it, and Nikki not having any sort of control or say of her body, making decisions, the way okay, so a lot of people talk about the and trigger warning, the SA scene, which having to explain that to my daughter was difficult because she's in her preteen stage, so she kind of understands what the movie was about and what was happening, but she's like, I want to watch it, but I did hear there was a scene. And I said, yes. And what it is, it's not like it's, oh God. And I feel weird, like even saying it, but it's not like it's violent. It's just because she is not in control of her body. So it is technically an essay. And the fact that she gets that made me feel kind of good to know that she understands that and she understands the message that is kind of being portrayed in this movie. So, and we didn't watch it with her on the first watch. It was just Greg and I who watched it. Just to be clear, I liked when it's movies like that. I kind of like to get the opinions of others if this is a movie that I should be showing to her because, she's watched the Terrifier movies. She went and saw Terrifier 3 in theaters with us, like right after we came home from HHN and Milton, which that was a fun experience. But she knows the difference between what's real, what's not. And also Terrifier, since one has kind of shifted into it's so outlandish that it's unbelievable type of sense. Like the first one warranted gore and warranted a lot of reactions of like, I don't like that. And that understandably, because it was pretty graphic, but also too, like for me, someone who just appreciates the slasher genre, was blown away by that whole situation. As we've gone through 2 and 3, it's gotten a little bit more, I don't want to say lighthearted, even though there are chainsaws that go up people's asses and children that get, violently murdered on Christmas, and it's not funny, but I'm not a comment warrior anymore when it comes to Terrifier. People are allowed to have their opinions about it, so I completely understand. When I say it, it sounds ridiculous, very like conflicting. Oh, and it's not that bad, but he is murdering children on Christmas. But anyway, back to the point of obsession where I'm getting at with this is I like to get So, of course, I'm so sorry about that, guys, without fail. And I'm glad that it is a solo episode. My mic and camera magically disappeared from my recording. So I'm going to try to jump back into whatever train of thought that I was back on. Oh, we're talking about obsession. But it was just a very, for me, a very uncomfortable situation. And yes, a lot of the scenes were created to make you feel that way. But even the ones where it's just her, like screaming when he's like, Nikki, like, why can't you, and he's, at her, why can't you just be normal? Why can't you just be Nikki? And she's like, I can't be Nikki. Like that scene hit so hard, just as like a female or as a person, let's just say, that has felt that they truly genuinely couldn't be themselves in whatever situation, having no control of yourself in a relationship. It's just it's very heavy. The tones of obsession are very, very heavy. The the scene where she tells Bear that she's gonna pretty much, trigger warning, kill herself. Um, Again, sorry for the technical delays. I had to stop and plug the camera back in. So hopefully we won't have any more of these issues. But I'm going to stop rambling about obsession. But I did want to say, like, the biggest takeaway that I got from that movie was accountability. Right? Is knowing when to own up to your actions, even if they are wrong with ill intent. Like, own your shit. And I feel like the way that Bear knew and still did not have the guts to say, "Hey, I did something wrong, but, like, let's fix this because I know it is," and admit it, and, like, try to help the person that he originally started to care about. I feel like it just screamed accountability. So then that rolls into, for me, Backrooms. So, my daughter and I got to go see that on the big screen when it was out, which is fantastic. I'm really happy that I got to see that one in theaters. The reason too why we haven't been going to the movies this much or that much this year is obviously, the state of the economy, the world that we're in right now. And I'm definitely not going to harp on that because I'm not. It's just, things to kind of add fuel to the fire, I guess. But really excited that we allocated our money to go see that movie because it was phenomenal. Sound design, um, I 10 out of 10 for me. I great experience. But my biggest takeaway from Backrooms as well was accountability, and I don't know if anyone listening has seen or heard of, Channel Zero, the series that was on Sci-Fi that is, in my opinion, one of the best horror shows, to ever exist. I wish that it would come back. Or I wish that other people would take that formula. I know that sounds horrible, but I miss it so much that I would just love to see another version of it. Which if I stop and actually think about it, and I'm sure I'll get responses. I'm sure there are shows that are like that now, but they just had such a beautiful way of tying in these themes and these stories into this to the seasons and having them be so cohesive and terrifying and the visuals, it was just great. So watching Backrooms, it gave me a feeling of a Channel Zero episode, which I loved, like No End House. I don't know if anyone specifically watched No End House, um, but that season in particular was one of our favorites, and it felt very heavy in this movie. But again, I think that accountability is one of the biggest takeaways from both of those movies, which I think, my opinion, a lot of people need to really home in on because I think we are lacking accountability nowadays. We are lacking self-awareness. We are lacking the ability to grow personally. You know what I mean? Like I was young and I could do nothing wrong, right? I was perfect. I also too, like if you argued with me about Michael Myers, I would be like, "You're a fool," like, and this is just me being younger, but taking accountability for the way that you act and trying to either better yourself or change those ways or whatever it may be. I just feel like once you start doing that, it makes you more human and it makes you more, I guess, like aware to how accountability is so important and how it is lacking nowadays. So that's where I'm gonna stop, like, with the serious talk, I guess, for now, about the movies and, like, of course, I went off on a tangent, and I don't even know what the original talking point was. I think we were talking about horror movies of 2026. See, this is what happens when you don't write anything down for your shows, but I just like to kind of freeball it, when it's me, because it's like firecracker moments. Like I'll say something and then it reminds me of something else, and then hopefully I can connect those points to go back to it. But still on horror movies of 2026. Um, really happy that we get these types of movies where they are hits with the audience, and they also have a message construed into the storyline, which brings me back to Hokum. And I won't spend too much time talking about Hokum because I know I've talked about it as many times as I possibly could, but I felt like accountability was another huge theme in the storyline for that movie. And I loved that sense of storytelling because we kind of see a full circle moment of someone who learns that and has like breakthrough moments, and not necessarily, you know what I mean? Like I feel like people kind of downplay the movie because it was years in between that Ohm was that way and Ohm sat with, what he did. And again, I'm not going to have any spoilers, but like, you know what I mean? The childhood that he had and the memories that he had, it's just I don't know. It was beautiful to see his character arc go from someone where I'm like, I could care a less if he makes it to the end, to rooting for him, and then also having a moment of like crying and watching a beautiful rendition of what grief and acceptance and accountability feels like. It's just very heavy, and it's very heavy. And I don't know also too if it's just because of how my age and where I am in my life, because I also feel like horror movies can hit differently at different stages of your life, right? So growing up, I felt, the faculty, I felt Halloween H2O, Screams, all these characters were aged in the teen demographic or in that age where I was like preteen, teen, late 20s, right? So those kind of hit for me. And then you progress to the stage of, being either a wife or a husband or having a child. So fast forward to Greg and I sitting in a movie theater watching Hereditary as my mom's watching our then, and I don't even know when that came out, 2018, so probably like 4-year-old daughter, I don't know. And me sitting in the theater after the telephone pole scene, which I don't need to give a spoiler warning for that because it's Hereditary. So if you haven't seen Hereditary, go watch it because I feel like that's a horror movie that you quote unquote should watch just to kind of get your opinion because it's so popular in the horror community. But I texted my mom like, hey, like, please hug her and tell her I love her, you know what I mean? And that hit differently. And then you fast forward to, a couple years back with Speak No Evil and being a parent watching that screaming at the screen, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, fuck the teddy bear, get the fuck out of there, you know? And I kind of, as a joke, say watching all these horror movies kind of taught me lessons, even though the lessons that I would already convey as a parent, but at least I know that maybe I would have a fighting chance in this situation, which I would never like. Uh, Speak No Evil, again, one of the most amazing international foreign films that definitely did not need an American remake, even though James McAvoy, let's be real, looked pretty. Anyway, that aside, because that's not the reason of liking a movie, but Speak No Evil, the original, just made me sit in silence 15 minutes after that movie ended because I just thought about being in that situation, if to ever be in that situation, how I would react. Um, trigger warning for, like the last act and what happens, is pretty hard to watch as a parent. And also knowing like the premise of the movie, that was very hard to watch. So Um, again, I just want to put a tangent. I don't even know what we're talking of, like what the purpose of that was. But accountability. Oh, movies hitting differently as you get older. So maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just like an old gal now, just chilling in my 40s and I'm emotional over everything. Because that one really, Hokum brought out emotion in me. I'm trying to think of another one that brought out emotion. Um, I cried in the Bone Temple, I cried in The Long Walk, just a lot, but I think that we're getting into an era of horror where there's a lot for everyone. There's, the practical effects, the easy takeaway ones where you're just not too much thought in it and you're just having fun. And then you have like the smash hits like Obsession, yet they do have a serious message. And then, like it's just we're kind of getting horror in so many different forms and I'm here for it. And I love every single second of it. So let's transition out of what I've been watching and like what is actually, but there are some upcoming horror movies that I'm really excited to see. Off the top of my head, I really can't think of a ton of like indie ones, but Buddy, that's on my list because I've been really feeling the puppet vibes. Because I just recently watched Pinocchio Unstrung, and let me tell you something. If you are in the mood for fun, and I'm talking like kid dark humor, uh, the Pinocchio itself as a puppet, holy shit, like the craftsmanship of that doll and the way that it translates on the screen, I'm so, so happy that they went practical for this one. But again, and then we have the horror legend, Robert Englund as Cricket. And I couldn't tell you how many times I was laughing. Like tears almost coming down my face, the inappropriate jokes. It's just it was packaged perfectly. It's a great slasher. It's gory. There's heart to it. There's scenes where I was just grabbing things and back to going to the movies and being tight on money and the economy. If you can see Pinocchio Unstrung in theaters coming out July 24th, which would be this weekend coming up, go do it. Go allocate your money to indie horror because the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that went into making this movie, especially with such a huge name attached to it, who again, I am not discrediting Robert Englund. He is a horror legend icon. He is Freddy Krueger. Like let's be real. And I love the portrayal of other characters in this movie that kind of mirrored Freddie in a sense, where I got those vibes. Oh, it was very nostalgic too. And I don't know how, because it's like a Disney movie, but it's not. And you're having Disney intertwined with like old horror movie, but it felt right. It felt perfect. But the point that I'm trying to make here is yes, Robert's in the movie, but he did not make the movie. And I know that's a very strong statement. And I mean no disrespect at all when I say that, because he brings so much to the table. But the other actors involved, the effects, just everything brought that added element to this movie that made it fantastic. And I cannot say more positive things about this movie. So if you have the opportunity, please go see and spend your money on indie horror and put it that way, because box office horror is doing it. Evil Dead Burns just made a shit ton of money. Obsession, those numbers, I can't even crunch those numbers, but we all know those numbers. Go keep supporting indie horror because those are the places that we're getting original ideas from. We are getting, blood, sweat, and tears. Go support them. That's all I'm going to say. What else is coming up that I want to check out? There's a bunch, and I'm going to do a post about the remaining half of 2026 since we're smack dab in the middle. But we're going to shift from what I've been watching to what's coming up for Pretty Killer Podcast, and I'm really stoked. So I'll do a little breakdown. So in the grand scheme of things, my friend Kara, who she works for 95X, she's online as Kara on Air. She's fantastic. She does reviews. She does pop culture, very heavy into music. She's just a fantastic person, great human being. And I met her at Scaricon when we did media last year here in Syracuse, which was such an amazing experience. That was my first media for a horror convention. So it was nice to share that with her, connect, and grow that bond with her. She was new to the scene. Terrifier 3 was the horror movie that got her into horror. And I just think that it's so badass of her to be like, yes, Terrifier 3 was the one that locked it in, and this is why we're here. So very excited. But she came up with an idea. She wanted to do a horror club in the area because she felt like there wasn't a lot of there wasn't anything like this in the area. They do the Buffalo garage sale. They have events, in CNY, so like Buffalo, Rochester area, a lot of things happening in New York City, but nothing truly in our area. And I thought about this for the longest time too. So when she came to me the other day, I'm like, hell yes, I will join you on this journey. And here we are. So with that being said, the Syracuse Horror Club was created, and we actually have our first event coming up, which is so crazy to say. Like, coordinated an event. We have live music that's going to be there, which is Underwater Bosses. And Underwater Bosses, they are a instrumental surf rock group from CNY, and they actually let me use Salmon's Lot as my intro music. And I am also married to the bass player, so I have uh, a little help in that regard to get them to play. But they will be playing some of their biggest hits. They're going to be doing some horror covers, and they have the trumpet joining for some of the songs. So it's going to be horns involved. It's going to be a really fun time in the musical sense. They're going to be playing. Well, I guess I should announce what the event is, the name of the event, where it's going to be, and when it's at. So it's Summerween in the Park at Goblet Park in Central Square. And that is happening August 8th. So 3 weeks away, which is crazy. There's going to be a ton of vendors. We have horror authors, we have horror merch, slime, vintage clothes and accessories, just anything and everything that you could think of horror, which is so I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be candid here. The response of vendors when we put out there that we were looking for vendors, within, I don't want to say minutes, but within a short period of time, Kara messaged me and said, we're pretty much at capacity. Like, we've had like 52 applications, and that made my heart so happy in knowing that there was such an outreach of people locally that wanted to partake in this horror club and this event. So I just want to say to anyone listening, if you applied, if you're going to be at the event, thank you so much for wanting to share your amazing craftsmanship with us and to come celebrate with us and have faith in our event. So already, thank you to anyone who is signed up. Make sure you come see us if you're in the surrounding areas. Again, I know I said the economy is horrible. Gas is astronomical, but if you can, and it's a free event. It's a free event, no charge. We will have Elm Street tacos there. When we relocated in 2019, everything kind of shut down because of COVID. But once things got up and moving again, we were able to experience Elm Street tacos, the birria tacos, and they were some of the best birria tacos that and I'm proud. No, it's birria tacos. Some of the best. It was crisp. The onions and the cilantro, the beef was tender. The consomme that you dip it in was just the perfect balance of hot and the flavors. So I'm really excited that they're going to be at our event. It's kind of like, it's so weird to say this. It's a full circle moment for me, because moving to the area and getting into creating Pretty Killer Podcast and wanting to collaborate with them at some point, because I thought that, I'm like, how cool would it be to have them at a Pretty Killer Podcast event or something? And now we're doing the Syracuse Horror Club, and they're going to be there. So very, very excited for that. And then also, so circling back to Underwater Bosses, they will be playing for half of the event. So the event is from 12 to 5. So they're going to be playing from like 3:30 to the end. So if you want to come check out the live music, That's when they'll be playing. And like I said, they're going to be doing some horror covers. There was one request that I was trying to have them pull out for this event, if not this one, for the next one, because Kara and I have already started talking about what we want to do for a fall event during spooky season. So I'm really excited about that. Hopefully, this event brings out a crowd and gets a buzz going so we can have fabulous Halloween slash spooky season event. So stay tuned. And also, if you haven't signed up, even if you're not from the area, sign up, support the club, because we just want to bring camaraderie to the area. I feel like right now, the the most transactional, the most I don't how do I want to say it? The most rewarding transaction right now is just connecting and being kind and having conversations. That is monetary to me. That fills my emotional bank. You know what I mean? And not to sound cheesy, but connecting with people and being able to talk about, how we felt about Obsession or what we thought of the last Scream installment or whatever the conversation may be, just to have like-minded people connect, be there and have those conversations comfortably and not feeling like you're an outcast or you're feeling, weird about it. Because again, yes, we're in 2026, but growing up, there was such a stigma about liking horror and the more obscure type of entertainment. You know what I mean? Like I was always the girl that read, instead of, I mean, I did read The Babysitter's Club. Don't get me wrong, and like American Dolls, but I read The Fear Streets. I read Goosebumps. I read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. All of that stuff was up my alley. When my girlfriends, we would go to our local movie theater in a little small town that I think only had 2 movies at the time. I think they've changed to, like, maybe 4 or 5 now, so they added theaters, but it was just 2 movies that would be shown. And I remember the weekend Titanic came out and Halloween H2O, also came out, and I'll never forget seeing the Dimension sign come down and then, like, hearing the voice talk about it, and then I was like, "Holy shit, like, are we getting another Halloween movie?" And then it came out that it was Halloween H2O with Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams. I was like, "Holy fuck," like, losing my mind, like, exploding, right? And then you have all these other friends that I hung out with, and they were all about fucking Titanic and Leo and Kate Winslet, My Heart Will Go On. So we're, like, walking up to the movie theater on the marquee, and of course, it's, like, Titanic and H2O, and I wanted to be the one to just be like, "Oh my god, like, I think I see my grandma. Hold on," and then, like, sneak off to go sit in Halloween H2O, which I have done before. I've gone to horror movies by myself, back in the day when I, A, felt like no one would go with me, B, had a douchebag ex-boyfriend that wouldn't go to the movies with me, and I made my own decision to go by myself. That's why he was an ex. And I actually, funny story, I got to go see Friday the 13th, the remake, 2009, by myself, because he decided he wanted to go to his local watering hole to drink his Busch Lights. Fucking douche. But anyway, I went and saw Friday the 13th, the remake, and I grab my popcorn, I get my soda because I am stoked. Again, little old horror me, pumped that we're getting Jason on the big screen, and I get to go see it because I grew up on Friday the 13th, with my with when I was younger, the friend group that I would roll with, like, the popular girls, but then I'd also roll with, like, my other friends that were kinda like like, we loved Corn and, like, Limp Bizkit and that group, also was smoking a little bit of weed. But anyway, we would go to the video store and get Sleepaway Camp, A Ghost Story, Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. What else do we watch? Just any cheesy looking horror movies in the horror section, we'd grab them. We'd get The New Blood, Part 7. We would get Jason Takes Manhattan. We would get Halloween 4 and 5. You know what I mean? Like they were my horror group where we would just rent a whole bunch of tapes from the movie store and watch them over the weekend. So I did kind of have that, but with the group I went with, they were full blown Titanic, and I could not show my poker face of wanting to go see Halloween instead. So again, sorry for that tangent going off that trail, but just really excited to be part of an event to bring people together. So if you are not busy that weekend, please come see us. And also too, if you can't make it, but you want to ask some questions to the people that are going to be there, or ask questions for Kara and I, or a specific vendor or anyone, submit them. Like, let us know, because we want you to be part of it as well if you cannot show up. So again, check our socials for that. If you're not following the Syracuse Horror Club or Kara, please go do so right now. We will be posting more and more content leading up to the event. And again, that is August 8th. No charge. It's absolutely free. So come down and see us and celebrate Summerween. So transitioning from that event into the next one that we have coming up. So I saw that the Sci-Fi Horror Fest in Vernon Downs, which is at the Vernon Downs Casino, they have their horror convention, and they posted early in the year that it was happening. So I definitely wanted to try to connect and see if they had any media spots open, because I had a lot of fun at ScaraCon connecting with people at the convention, celebrities. All right, well, we lost the camera, but at this point, I'm just gonna call it, because I'm not gonna keep attempting to plug it in and out, in and out. So, so now we're talking about the Sci-Fi Horror Fest, and like I was saying, I saw that the event was happening in August, so I reached out to Tiffany Beth, who is the promoter of the event, and had a great conversation with her. We connected, got to meet her in person, and she is one of the most kindest, um, most caring, generous, just amazing human beings that I connected with in such a short amount of time. Very thankful for her. So she uh, came on the pod, talked about that, and then she asked Kara and myself if we would like to be part of the core media team for the Sci-Fi Horror Fest. And of course, without any hesitation or doubt, I accepted. So I'm very proud to be a part of their team. I'm very excited to connect with the people that are going to be at the convention, meaning the people that are coming to, experience it all. Because to me, that's the best part of it, is the fans and the community, because they're there for a reason. They're showing up and showing out to, support the genre, to support the celebrities that are there, to support the organization that put it together. And that's what we're here for, is community and supporting one another. So really excited to be a part of that. And not to get, silly on you guys, but each year with Pretty Killer Podcasts, I kind of give myself personal goals and professional goals for the show and for the pod and for the page, that I would like to do. And I don't go crazy with them. And I do believe that manifestation is a real thing. I believe that if you think about things and you already see yourself doing them, you are speaking it into existence. You're already projecting that trajectory of it actually happening. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds silly, but there's been a lot of things in my life that I have thought on, wished on, and they have come to fruition. So, believe it or not, that's where my head goes. So, one of my personal goals for this year was to have Damian McCarthy on the pod, because with the release of Hokum this year, it kind of solidified for other people Damian McCarthy's stance in the horror genre. For me, I was already sold with Caveat when I watched that one, and then with his release of Oddity, and now with Hokum, he is three for three. But I had zero doubts that he was going to dominate horror as he's doing now. So I've always wanted to connect with him, and we've conversed, we've connected, and we had opportunities, but he was shooting Oddity and I missed the window, and then he was shooting Hokum, so I missed that window. But after Hokum released, we were able to connect, and I'm telling you what, that was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life and of the career of Pretty Killer Podcast, because I just look up to him so much with his storytelling, his writing, his directing, the way that he sees things, the way that his mind conveys these stories is just beautiful to see. And I think he is one of the most talented directors and just visionaries uh, in horror now. So being able to interview him was just an amazing experience. And on top of that, which, they always say don't meet your heroes, but he is one of the nicest, kindest, funniest people that I've met. So that was really nice to have that experience. And then my second one, which it already kind of happened because I got to interview David Howard Thornton right before Terrifier 2 was released to the theaters. There was, oh my goodness, not Portlandia. Oh my goodness. There was a podcast that I listened to when I first started Pretty Killer Podcast, and they had a contest where if you said what your favorite kill was from the Terrifier movie, you could interview David Howard Thornton or Damien Leone, which was like a duality type thing, and I didn't know which one I wanted to pick, but I truly loved David's performance as Art in Terrifier. I just thought that he was one of the most, oh, how do I say it? I don't want to say creepy, but the most unnerving horror characters that I saw in a while. And clowns kind of get me. I don't really care for clowns that much. So seeing him, I was just very intrigued. And the pizza shop scene when I first watched Terrifier scared me. And I've talked about this in length multiple times on the show, on other people's podcasts about Terrifier. But when he shows up at the pizza shop with Tara, and I can't think of her name right now, but which is horrible because I love Catherine. I think she's fantastic. But whenever I record characters' names or the actors' names, always slip my mind, and I'm just going to keep going with it. But when they're in the pizza shop and he sits down and just stares at them, I was so uncomfortable the way that he was posing. And then like the last shot when he has his mouth and it's red and his eyes are huge and he's just staring, I had goosebumps. I felt super uncomfortable. I looked around my living room. I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? So instant classic for me. And then I loved Damien's way of shooting. I loved the grindhouse effect. I loved his style. I just thought that they were it, you know what I mean? So when I won the contest, I picked that I wanted to interview David. So got ready for it. We had an issue with him, so we had to postpone it, which was great because my nerves, I was freaking out, but I had a Jaws poster behind me. So when I finally got to interview him, they're like, okay, keep it short, keep it sweet. You only have a couple minutes. Ask him the question that you wanted to ask, let him respond, and then you say thank you, and then you bow out, and then we'll continue the interview. And I was like, okay, got it. Like, we'll bring David in. So bring David in, and I'm sitting there, and then he was like, hey, and we exchanged, hi, I'm Jordana. And he's like, oh my God, Damien would love that poster. And I was like, yes. I'm like, Jaws is one of the greatest movies ever made. And we talked about that like a little bit. And then I rolled into my question, which was, after experiencing Terrifier, I was truly scared. So playing a role like that, what scared you as when you were younger? And he proceeded to talk about Poltergeist, and he talked about his mom, which he has lost his mom, but it was a beautiful story that he told me about the experience he had with it. And he went on and he just kept talking. So I did not want to be rude, even though, like I was saying in the beginning about adhering to rules, like with the screeners, but I just felt like I should keep the conversation going with him. And then after we got off, and I ran outside and screamed and did a little dance and jumped in the pool and got all my nerves out and was freaking out. Very, very happy with that. I sent him a message and said, I would love to have you on the pod and interview you. And he's like, yeah, I just got some things going on for promotion for Terrifier 2, and then we'll connect. And then the rest is history. Terrifier, has since been at Halloween Horror Nights and is a horror icon, has solidified himself as a horror icon. And I hate saying it, I'm not mean to people about like whether or not you like Terrifier, but you have to accept the fact that he is the new horror icon, and he has solidified that title with the greats of Michael, Freddy, Jason, Pennywise, Jigsaw, Leatherface, all the big Candyman, all the big names. He is in that realm. And I think too really kind of propelled the side of, you know, he's actually kind of funny, and the way that he um conveyed art in the funny manners, but then, like, we have the bedroom scene, and we have just the most horrible things that he does. I just I loved the humor, and I felt like it didn't feel off. I felt like it was meant to be in there as the progression of the series. So, um, I know I just rambled again, tangent number 3, but I get to do media for the Sci-Fi Horror Fest, and David is a guest this year. So I'll get to actually interview him and talk to him after the experiences of 1, 2, and 3, after the experiences of becoming a horror icon, after the experience of having, a house dedicated to him and his character and his movies. It's just um thinking about it now, I'm mildly getting, like, the nerves, the best nerves, though, and I don't know if you guys can't see, but I'm grinning from ear to ear, so I'll get to interview David Howard Thornton. So those are 2 of my personal and professional goals, that I get to knock off the list this year. On top of that, too, I mean, there are some amazing personalities coming to, the Sci-Fi Horror Fest. So we actually have the Jason Lives 40th reunion. We have CJ Graham, Tom McLaughlin, and Tom Matthews. We have David Howard Thornton. We have Samantha Scafidi, Victoria Hayes. Like, I'm losing my shit about that. Like, I cannot believe I get to talk to her, because she is phenomenal, and I loved her as a character. So being able to talk about a female presence in such an iconic horror franchise, and owning it, because I'm sorry, let's just say for what it is, Terrifier 3 kind of was like a Victoria Hayes moment, like, yes, art was there, obviously, but I just felt like she really kind of locked it in for me for 3. And then we have Emil McLean, uh, who plays the little pale girl. Really excited to talk to her. We have Jason Brooks. We have Naomi Meacham Miller, who is a special effects artist. We have just so many personalities. We have Darcy DeMoss. We have Ron Sloan. Excuse me for geeking out about this name, but Lloyd Kaufman, hello, Trauma. Like, I I'm just beside myself with the amazing lineup that they have, on top of the vendors, on top of the podcast that's going to be there covering, just so many personalities, so many amazing things to cover. So that's happening August 14th and 15th at the Vernon Downs Casino in Vernon's, New York. If you have not purchased tickets, please head over to the website. I do believe I have the link to the Sci-Fi Horror Fest in my link tree, so you could check there, but make sure that you are getting the official page, not a third party, because there are third parties, people that are trying to sell bogus tickets, and there are no refunds. So make sure that you are actually going to the right page to get these tickets. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a great time. The vibes of the con with, just being mindful of each other, being considerate to each other. Like, no, there's no political talk. There are rules for this convention because they want this to be the most satisfying experience for every person, for every walk of life coming in the door. So keeping it positive, keeping it happy, respecting people, and just living in the moment of, you know, um, being together because of horror is what it's all about. So please join us the 14th and the 15th, and keep your eye out for the media on Pretty Killer Podcast socials. Kara on Air, she will be doing media, and of course the Sci-Fi Horror Fest page just in general. Who are you guys excited to see clips from? I'm still really geeking out about Lloyd Kaufman, because I just think he's one of the most he's a national treasure, and he's brought us some of the most iconic horror movies ever, and he is breathing life into new indie horror. Hellmare was just picked up by Troma, which is um an amazing indie film, one of my favorites from this year. They brought us Blood Gorge, they brought us Cruel, Victor shout out Victor Gabriel, RNF Pictures. Also, correction on my part, it's RFN. I always get it. I when it comes to names, I always flub it, but I apologize. RFN Pictures. And they have officially picked up Helmer. So I'm so excited for all parties involved. I just think it's such a great representation of Victor Gabriel and the movies and the ideas that he puts out. So excited for that. And to pick his brain because I'm sure he has such amazing stories to tell. And also, there's going to be a photo opportunity of Jason versus Art. So, very, very excited about that. But again, that's happening August 14th and 15th. So please come out and see us. And if you are going to the event and you know that I'm going to be there, please come up and say hello. I'm going to be talking to everyone there. I want to interview as many people as possible. I will be asking the age-old question that I always do when I have guests on of what got you into horror. And I will be asking the celebrities those questions as well. So if any of the names that I listed, or there are some names that I did not list, you can head over to the site and check them out. Please let me know what you want me to ask specific celebrities because I will definitely get that job done. But I'm going to stop rambling. And if you have stuck along this whole time and you've been listening for this 57 minutes of me pausing and trying to remember where the hell I was at with what I'm saying. I appreciate you as always. And I know I always say this, but let me know if you like solo episodes because I just feel silly sitting here talking about whatever the hell's going on. But I'm thinking maybe starting a series of like covering movies. But there's so many podcasts and pages that do that. So I don't really want to do something if that's not what the audience is looking for. So let me know in the comments when I post this, like what you want to see. If you want to see a specific deep dive into like a horror movie, like for one episode, or if you want me to do like a franchise dive or a specific subgenre or a specific topic like revenge horror, slash whatever, what have you, but just me doing it, let me know because I want to get your insights and your opinions because you are the ones who are listening to the episodes. So thank you for sticking with this one. Thank you for checking this one out. And like I say, well, I am going to be drinking the rest of my coffee and water. But like I say, as always, make sure that you are being kind to one another and that you're drinking water. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. All right. Bye.